Hello, I'm Crazy Cards fan Chris, and I'm back for episode 2. I know, you should be so excited. Today, we'll talk a little bit more about the Arenado trade. We'll talk about pitching and other Cardinal moves in the last week. So, we'll go back to the Arenado trade just a little bit. We did lose Gomber. And I think Gomber's significant because Gomber has the capability of being like a number 3 or number 4 kind of pitcher at his best. He showed a lot to me. I know the Cardinals used him as a swing man more than anything else. Starter a couple years ago when they had lots of injuries, and he did a great job. That curveball was wicked. He's capable of a lot, so it's not as though they gave away nothing. He is a good pitcher, and it is going to hurt them a little bit, but they do have a lot of depth. So other moves recently, they basically dumped Fowler. As a player, and I want to stress as a player, not as a person, I never liked Fowler. He was not a good fit for the Cardinals. I never understood why they signed him in the first place. Because when it came down to it, they had plenty of young outfielders just about to make it. And Fowler, even at his best, is okay. He's not a great player. He had one good year with the Cardinals, his first year with them. And after that, he was pretty much terrible most of the time. Last year, he had about 5 good days where he was stinging the ball. First part of the year, he hit a couple home runs off of guys that he generally crushes. And other than that, everything was soft as can be. He was lucky to have stuff fall in or dribble through once in a while. So that was not a good sign for the long term. And then later, he did have about 4 or 5 days where he was crushing the ball pretty well. Everything was stung, and he hit 2 more home runs. But other than that, he was just terrible at bat. He's not a good outfielder. Never was. The Cardinals are better without him. They need to either find somebody really good for the outfield to go along with Dylan Carlson and Bader / whoever they platoon with him. And I do think that we're getting to a point where we probably need to platoon Bader one way or another. Justin Williams, or like I mentioned in the last episode, is it better to have Tyler O'Neill hit against the right-handers, or most of the right-handers? I don't know. Let's see. But let's go back to the pitching. So there are rumors talking about the Cardinals going after Odorizi. He is a good pitcher. I'm not sure what his age is, but I was looking back through his statistics, and he doesn't really have bad years. He's a consistently pretty good pitcher, but he doesn't give you a lot of innings. He's like 150, 160 inning guy. He's not your 200 inning horse. So it's interesting they're thinking about that. I'm not sure that's what I would do because of the massive pitching depth, and some of those young guys have really high-end capabilities. So I'm not sure that's a wise move. So let's go through the starting staff right now. Flaherty's number 1, obviously. At his best, he's as good as anybody in baseball. That second half of 2019 was the best pitching I've ever seen. He does need to prove that wasn't a fluke, because his first year his rookie year he was good. Second year he was okay in the first half and phenomenal in the second half. So we need to see a little more. I don't doubt that it's there. I think he's going to come through and be the true ace that he looks like, or that we were hoping Martinez was going to be. We'll get to him in a minute too. Who's your number 2? Right now, I would say Kim. I know some. We interrupt this regularly scheduled broadcast. Kidding. I'm having some issues with the camera shutting off at 5 minutes, and it interrupted right in the middle of my talk twice during this video, so I'm going to try to fill in the holes and then catch up with today's game. I was talking about starting pitching, and number 2 I have down as Kim. The guy had an ERA well under 2 last year. He pitched very well. I will say this, being that they didn't have a lot of video on him, being from Korea, that's going to help. So some of the league that got to see him last year will catch up a little bit this year. So I'm not expecting a 1 point something ERA. Around 3 maybe, something like that. But I did like what I saw from him last year and think he'll do a good job. Michaelis, he had surgery. I believe he had something very similar to mine. This is not Tommy John surgery. It has nothing to do with Tommy John surgery, although I keep hearing people who have no idea what they're talking about saying that it is similar. So no, it has nothing to do with that. I never recovered properly, but I wasn't a pitcher. I wasn't a major league pitcher, so I didn't have that kind of rehab, and it was in 1991, so 30 years ago. I'm sure the surgery wasn't nearly as good as it is now. Michaelis, I think, is at worst a decent pitcher, and at best a very good pitcher. I think reality is probably he is good. Plenty good for number 3 and maybe the real number 2. And I think this is where the video gets back to me talking about Waino. So I have Waino as number 4, and we'll stop here and go back to the original video. Okay, so like I said, he's always great in September. Sorry, we had a little interruption. But what is he going to do? He was great last year, 2020, for 60 innings. I'm sorry, 60 games. Can we trust a 39-year-old to throw 150 to 200 innings? I doubt it. Is the age going to catch up to him in a form of injuries and he'll miss significant time? I don't know. Will it catch up with him in the form of his body just won't cooperate and he's not as good anymore? I don't know that either. So I do have some concern about Waino, and I do want to make sure I say this. Waino is one of my all-time favorite Cardinals. He's a cool dude. Kind of guy anybody want to have a drink with, hang out with. Very interesting person. I do hope he does well. Who's going to be number 5? Will it be Carlos? Will it be Reyes? How about Ponce? Woodford? I can't think of the guy's name. It begins with an O. Pitched pretty well to start last year, and then he kind of faded a little bit as rookie who hadn't pitched above Double-A often do. And let's not forget our 2 lefties that aren't too far down the road with Thompson, or what is that the right name? I hate it when I do that. And Liberatore. Everybody seems to think Liberatore is a number 1 type of pitcher. So they'll start the year in Double-A most likely. What'll happen then? Double-A and the majors aren't that far apart. So if some of the other guys don't work out, they might just work out fine. It'll be interesting to see. They have more depth, and bullpen-wise, I like the bullpen, but as much as everybody wanted to blame the offense for losing that series to San Diego, let's not forget, they scored 9 runs in the first game, 7 runs in the second game, and then they did what they did more than any team in the last couple of years. Massive inconsistency and completely get shut down. Hopefully Arenado will help that. I think he will, actually. But the bullpen faded in game 2. That's what made them lose. They scored 7 runs. You can't lose games where you score 7 runs. Wino wasn't great in that game. He wasn't terrible, but it was the bullpen that gave up the runs, because I believe they had the lead when the bullpen took over, and they faded. A couple guys just had bad outings. Did Schilt make wrong moves? Maybe, maybe not. I like Schilt overall, but I don't agree with everything he does, as I would never agree with everything any manager does unless it was me. Nobody's paying me to manage the Major League Baseball team right now. So it'll be great to have Hicks back. That'll automatically strengthen the bullpen overall, because he was a great closer, and improving. It'll be interesting to see if, like some people, he comes back throwing even harder. That would be scary. So that'll help. And then what you do with who doesn't make the starting rotation will help. If Reyes isn't the 5th starter, are they piggybacking, or is he a late innings shutdown guy to go with Gallegos? There's a lot of capability on this team. Definitely going to be interesting. I do think this team wins the Central, maybe runs away with it, because I can't see anybody else in the Central finishing any better than around 500. I think a lot of those teams that made playoffs last year are going to be well below 500. I know some people predicting the Reds are going to finish 2nd and be playoff potential. And this is where I was talking about other teams in the league, or in the Central. And it cut me off again. I believe I was talking about the Reds. Some people think the Reds are good. They lost their best pitcher, or best pitcher from last year. They do still have 2 good starting pitchers, but I'm not real convinced about anybody else. And their offense is horrendous, and it's been horrendous for a few years. It wasn't just a short season last year. Milwaukee is another team some people are talking about. I don't see it. They also have a horrendous offense. I don't know if you noticed, last year wasn't unique in bad offense in the Central. It's actually been that way for a few years. If you look back, the Cardinals, Cubs, and Milwaukee are actually similar in runs scored. The other two tend to do it with more power than the Cardinals do, but that makes sense because they play in offensive ballparks and the Cardinals don't. I think everybody else went backwards. The Cubs went way backwards with their pitching staff. They still have the same people in the lineup for the most part. Peterson probably is an upgrade over Schwarber overall, but their pitching's horrendous. I mean, I start warming up my arm, I could probably pitch for them. Yes, of course I'm exaggerating. But they're going to have a horrendous pitching staff. Milwaukee, everybody talks about Kane's going to be back. Okay, if you looked at Kane's history, he's below average offensive player most of his career. He hit well the first year in Milwaukee. Once again, it's an offensive ballpark, and it still will be, of course. But he's also a couple years older now, and I just don't expect much out of him offensively. He's a great center fielder, no question there. Yeah, you'll get a bounce back from, I'm blanking on his name, their best player. But, I mean, who they got playing third? Wong will be a nice addition. I think actually, good for Wong, he will fit very well there and will show a lot more of his power, because I think Wong actually has a pretty decent amount of power. I wish him luck, but I just don't see Milwaukee as being a challenge. I think when it comes down to it, the Cardinals should be clear, obvious winners of the Central. Now, since I originally filmed this. A lot of things have happened. They re-signed Yachty, which we all knew they would. Added some depth. They're more AAA depth, I think. Moves overall were good. I like what this team's capability is. I don't know if they'll reach their potential, the outfielders especially. I'm really excited about... why am I doing this with names? Carlson. Watching Carlson hit, he looks like he can be at least a star. He's got explosion in his bat. He has good command in the strike zone. And if you look back at his numbers from last year, there's one where they combined barrel percentage and launch angle, and he was 4th in all of baseball. So his numbers should have been a lot better. And if you remember when he first came up, he was smoking the ball just right at people, or balls caught at the wall. So there's going to be a major improvement to have him full year and have last year's experience. What are we going to get out of Tyler O'Neill? I don't think we know yet. I mean, he's basically had one season worth of at-bats in his 3 years. He has steadily declined in OPS, but he's actually improved in strikeouts and walks. Usually when you improve in strikeouts and walks, OPS jumps too. So let's see how he does first 2 months. If he doesn't get the job done, then maybe he becomes a 4th outfielder or gets traded. I don't know.